Picture this. It's 1944. The forests of France are burning. German tank commanders sit inside their massive Tiger and Panther tanks, feeling like kings of the battlefield. Their tanks have the thickest armour. Their guns can punch through anything the Americans throw at them. They've been winning tank battles for years. Then they hear something strange, a high-pitched engine roar, something moving fast. Too fast. Way too fast for a tank. They laugh. What could the Americans possibly send against them that moves like a race car? They're about to find out. And they're not going to like it. The year is 1943. America has a problem. A big problem. German tanks are destroying everything. The Tiger tank weighs 56 tons. Its armour is so thick that American shells bounce off like rubber balls. The Panther tank is fast and deadly. German tank commanders know they have the best tanks in the world. They sit in strong positions and wait. When American tanks come close, boom, one shot. The American tank explodes. The crews don't even have time to escape. This happens over and over again. American tank crews are terrified. They call the Tiger tank the Beast. They know that if they see one, they're probably going to die. American generals are desperate. They need something new, something different. The Sherman tank is good, but it's not good enough. Its gun can't punch through German heavy armour. Its own armour is thin. One German shell and it bursts into flames. The soldiers call them Ronsons, after a lighter brand, because they light up on the first strike. The generals try everything. They make Shermans with bigger guns. They add more armour. Nothing works. The German tanks are still winning. Hundreds of American tankers are dying every week. Something has to change. Fast. Then someone has a crazy idea. What if we don't try to beat German tanks in a straight fight? What if we don't play their game? What if we make something totally different? Not a tank destroyer. Something light, something fast, something that can run circles around those big German beasts. The generals think it sounds insane. A light vehicle against a Tiger tank? That's suicide. But they're desperate. They give it a chance. They tell the designers to build the fastest armoured vehicle ever made. Make it so fast that German tanks can't even turn their turrets around in time to shoot it. The designers get to work. They strip away everything heavy. Minimal armour, open top, no fancy equipment, just speed. Pure speed. They take a powerful aircraft engine and stuff it into a light chassis. They add a powerful gun that can actually hurt German tanks, but only from the side or rear, where the armour is thin. The vehicle weighs only 18 tons. That's less than half the weight of a Sherman, less than 1/3 the weight of a Tiger. When they fire up the engine for the first time, it screams like a banshee. The test drivers can't believe it. This thing moves like lightning. On roads, it can hit 55 miles per hour. That's faster than most cars in 1943. It's 3 times faster than a Tiger tank. They call it the M18 Hellcat. The name fits perfectly. It's small. It's vicious. It's incredibly fast. When the first crews see it, they're not sure what to think. It looks like a death trap. The armour is so thin you can almost see through it. There's no roof. If a German shell hits you, you're finished. But then they drive it. Oh man. The speed, the handling, it corners like a sports car. It accelerates like a rocket. The crews start to smile. Maybe this crazy thing will work. Maybe they can actually survive now. Maybe they can even win. The training begins. The Hellcat crews learn new tactics. Everything is about speed and surprise, never stop moving, never fight fair. See a German tank, don't face it head on, circle around. Use your speed, get to its side, get to its rear. Shoot and move, shoot and move. Never stay in one place. If you stop, you die. The commanders drill this into them over and over. Your armour won't save you. Your speed will save you. Your brain will save you. Be smart, be fast, be deadly. In late 1943, the first M18 Hellcats shipped to Europe. The crew's nervous. They've heard stories about the German tanks. They know what happened to other American tank destroyers. The Germans crushed them. But the Hellcat is different. The crews feel it. This thing is special. As they drive through the French countryside toward the front lines, they hear the distant boom of artillery. They see smoke rising from destroyed towns. They know that soon, very soon, they're going to meet German armour. The question is simple. Will their speed be enough? Will their tactics work? Or will they just be more victims for the German tank commanders to laugh about? They're about to find out. The real test is coming. The first battle comes faster than anyone expects. A small town in France. American infantry is pinned down. German tanks are sitting on a hill shooting down at them. 3 Panthers, big, deadly, confident. The American soldiers are hiding behind rubble, praying. They've called for help. A radio crackles, Hellcat unit responding. 5 M18s are racing toward the battle at full speed. The commander, a young lieutenant from Texas, has a simple plan. Don't do what the Germans expect. Don't come up the main road. Don't fight them head on. Go around, use the trees, use the speed. Hit them where they're not looking. The Hellcats split up. 3 go left through the forest, 2 go right. The engines scream as they bounce over rough terrain. Inside, the crews are holding on tight. The gunner is loading armor-piercing shells. The driver is steering between trees at 40 miles per hour. This is insane. This is suicide. This is exactly what they trained for. The German tank commanders hear the engines but can't see anything. The Panthers turn their turrets left and right, searching. Where's that sound coming from? It sounds like motorcycles. Maybe American scouts. Nothing to worry about. They keep shooting at the infantry below. Then suddenly, boom! A Hellcat bursts out of the trees on the left side. It's moving so fast the Germans barely register it. The Hellcat's gun fires. The shell hits the rear of a Panther. Explosion. The German tank's engine compartment erupts in flames. The crew bails out, rolling on the ground to put out the fire on their uniforms. The other 2 Panthers try to turn. Their turrets rotate slowly, too slowly. By the time they're facing where the Hellcat was, it's gone, vanished back into the trees. The German commanders are confused. What just happened? Then boom! Another Hellcat appears on the right side, different angle. It fires. Hits the second Panther in the side, the shell punches through the thinner armor. Inside the German tank, hell breaks loose. The crew is screaming. Ammunition is cooking off. They abandon the tank, jumping out as fast as they can. Now there's only 1 Panther left. The commander is panicking. He orders his driver to reverse. Get away from this ambush. But the Panther is slow. It backs up at maybe 8 miles per hour. The Hellcats are hunting. 3 M18s come at him from 3 different directions. The German gunner doesn't know where to aim. He picks one and fires. Miss. The Hellcat dodges. Before he can reload, another Hellcat shoots him from behind. The shell hits the weak rear armor, penetrates. The Panther shudders and stops. Smoke pours from every hatch. The crew escapes, hands up, surrendering. The whole battle lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 Panthers destroyed, 0 Hellcats lost. The American infantry below can't believe it. They cheer. They wave their helmets in the air. Those crazy fast tank destroyers just saved their lives. Word spreads fast. The Hellcat crews did it. They actually did it. They beat German heavy tanks without losing a single vehicle. The tactic worked. Speed beat armor, maneuver beat firepower, intelligence beat brute force. But the German tank commanders aren't impressed yet. They think it was luck. They think the Hellcat crews got lucky. 3 Panthers with inexperienced crews, they say. Wait until they meet real tank aces. Wait until they meet the veterans from the Eastern Front. Those guys know how to fight. Those guys won't fall for cheap tricks. The Hellcat crew's no different. They know this is just the beginning. They know their tactics work, but they also know they can't get cocky. Every battle is life or death. One mistake and that thin armor means instant death. They gather around their vehicles after the battle. They're shaking from adrenaline. Some are laughing, some are quiet. They look at the burning German tanks in the distance. They think about the enemy crews. Those Germans were soldiers too, men with families. But this is war. It's them or us. And the Hellcat crews plan to make sure it's always them. More Hellcat units arrive in Europe every week. Hundreds of them. The crews train together. They share tactics. They learn from each battle. Never stay still. Always move. Use roads when you can. That's where you're fastest. Hit and run. Shoot and scoot. Find the enemy's weak spots. Attack from multiple directions. Make them panic. Make them confused. Speed is your armor. Movement is your shield. If you're fast enough, they can't hit you. If you're smart enough, you'll always have the advantage. The German tank commanders start hearing reports. These new American tank destroyers are different. They're not like the old ones. They're fast. Dangerously fast. They hit from unexpected angles. They work in packs like wolves. Several veteran commanders request intelligence reports. What are these vehicles? How many are there? What are their weaknesses? The reports come back. M18 Hellcat. Top speed 55 miles per hour. Armor minimal. Gun powerful enough to penetrate from side and rear. Operates in groups. Uses maneuver tactics. The Germans read this and some of them get a bad feeling this could be a problem, but many German commanders are still confident, so the Americans have a fast vehicle. So what? Fast doesn't matter if we see them coming. Fast doesn't matter if we set up proper ambushes. Fast doesn't matter if we use our superior training and experience. They instruct their crews to be more careful. Watch the flanks. Keep moving. Don't sit in one position too long. But deep down they still believe their Tigers and Panthers are superior. They still believe German engineering and German tactics will win. They have no idea what's coming. The Hellcats are just getting started. Belgium, December 1944. The coldest winter in decades. Snow everywhere. Ice on the roads. The Battle of the Bulge is raging. Hitler's last desperate gamble. He's thrown everything at the Americans. Hundreds of tanks. Thousands of soldiers. The goal is to split the Allied armies in half and capture the port of Antwerp. The German offensive catches everyone by surprise. American units are scattered. Communication lines are cut. Chaos everywhere. And rolling through the snow are the pride of the German panzer divisions. Tiger IIs, the most powerful tanks ever built. 70 tons of steel. Armour so thick that nothing can penetrate it from the front. A gun so powerful it can destroy any Allied tank from over a mile away. The German tank commanders feel invincible. The Americans are retreating. The weather is too bad for Allied planes to fly. No air support. No help coming. It's just tanks versus tanks. And the Germans know they have the best tanks. They push forward through the snow, crushing everything in their path. American Sherman tanks try to fight back. It's a massacre. The German shells tear through the Shermans like paper. Explosions light up the frozen landscape. The Americans fall back, and fall back, and fall back. The situation is desperate. Then the call goes out. Where are the Hellcats? We need the Hellcats. Several M18 units are scattered. Across the area, the commanders get their orders. Stop the German advance, slow them down. Buy time for reinforcements to arrive. The Hellcat crews look at each other. Stop Tiger IIs? In the snow? Where they can't use their speed advantage? This is going to be rough. But orders are orders. They mount up. The engines roar to life. Even in the freezing cold, the Hellcats start perfectly. The crews wrap themselves in extra coats. The open top means they're exposed to the brutal winter wind. They can see their breath. Their fingers are numb, but they have a job to do. The first Hellcat unit sets up an ambush near a crossroads. They hide their vehicles behind destroyed buildings. They wait. The snow is falling heavily. Visibility is terrible. Then they hear it. The deep rumble of heavy tanks. The ground shakes. Through the snow, dark shapes appear. Tiger IIs, 5 of them. Moving in a column, the Hellcat commander waits. His crew is silent. Everyone is tense. He lets the first Tiger pass, then the second. He's waiting for the perfect moment. When the third Tiger is directly in front of him, he gives the order. Fire! The Hellcat's gun roars. The shell flies across 200 yards and hits the side of the Tiger II. But something's wrong. The shell bounces off. The German armour is too thick even from the side. The Tiger commander reacts instantly. He orders his gunner to return fire. The massive 80mm gun swings toward the Hellcat's position. The American crew doesn't wait. They're already moving. The driver slams the accelerator. The Hellcat lurches forward just as the Tiger fires. The shell hits the building where they were hiding a second ago. The entire building collapses. If they'd stayed there, they'd be dead. The Hellcat races down a side street. The driver's fighting the controls. The roads are icy. The vehicle slides around corners. They're going 35 miles per hour through a destroyed town in a snowstorm. It's crazy. But it's working. The Tiger can't keep up. The German commander is frustrated. He orders his column to split up and hunt these Americans down. Big mistake. The Hellcats were waiting for this. When you split up, you're vulnerable. When you're alone, you can be surrounded. 2 Hellcats team up against 1 Tiger II. They coordinate on the radio. One acts as bait. It shows itself, fires a shot that bounces off the front armour, then runs. The Tiger takes the bait. It chases. The commander is angry now. He wants to kill this annoying American vehicle. He doesn't see the trap. His Tiger rumbles forward, turning down a narrow street. Then the second Hellcat appears behind him. It fires at point-blank range into the Tiger's engine deck, the weakest point. The shell penetrates. The Tiger's engine explodes. The massive tank rolls to a stop, smoke pouring out. Another kill for the Hellcats. This pattern repeats across the battlefield. The Hellcats can't win in a straight fight, but they don't fight straight. They use buildings for cover. They use the snow to hide. They hit and run. They work in teams. One Tiger II after another falls victim to their tactics. The German commanders are furious. These American vehicles are like ghosts. Here 1 second, gone the next. You think you have them cornered, but they slip away. You chase one and another shoots you from behind. It's maddening. A German tank ace named Heinrich Schmidt has killed 27 Allied tanks. He's a legend. He commands a Tiger II. He's confident he can handle these Hellcats. He studies their tactics. He notices they always retreat to the east after attacking, so he sets up an ambush. He positions his Tiger at a crossroads with good visibility. He waits. Sure enough, a Hellcat comes racing toward him. Schmidt smiles. Got you. He orders his gunner to fire. The shot is perfect. But the Hellcat driver sees the muzzle flash at the last second. He cranks the wheel hard. The vehicle slides sideways on the ice. The shell misses by inches. Schmidt can't believe it. How did they dodge that? He orders a reload. But before his gunner can fire again, 2 more Hellcats appear from different streets. They'd used their friend as bait. Now Schmidt is the one in the trap. He tries to reverse, but it's too late. Both Hellcats fire. Both shells hit his Tiger from the sides. One penetrates. Inside Schmidt's tank, the crew is shouting. Fire in the fighting compartment. They have to evacuate. Schmidt is the last one out. He stands in the snow, watching his tank burn. He's alive, but his pride is destroyed. The Americans outsmarted him. Those fast little tank destroyers beat his mighty Tiger II. By the end of the Battle of the Bulge, the Hellcats have proven themselves again. They've knocked out dozens of German heavy tanks. They've saved countless American lives. They've done it in the worst conditions imaginable. Snow, ice, limited visibility, against the best tanks Germany has, and they've won. The German tank commanders aren't laughing anymore. They're scared of the Hellcats. When they hear that high-pitched engine sound, they know trouble is coming. Fast, deadly trouble that attacks from angles they never expect. The Hellcat has become a legend. Germany, March 1945. The war is almost over. The German army is collapsing, but they're fighting harder than ever. Every town is defended. Every bridge is contested. The German tank crews know they're losing, but they won't surrender. They'll fight to the last. The Americans are pushing deep into Germany now. The Hellcat units are leading the way. They've become the tip of the spear. Fast reconnaissance, quick strikes, breaking through defensive lines. They've evolved from just tank destroyers into multi-role combat vehicles. One Hellcat crew has become famous. They call themselves the Speed Devils. The commander is Sergeant Mike O'Brien from Chicago. His driver is a farm boy named Tommy from Iowa who can make the Hellcat dance. The gunner is quiet, precise, deadly accurate. They've been together since France. They've survived dozens of battles. They've destroyed 14 German tanks together. They know each other so well they barely need to talk. Hand signals, a look. They understand. Today they're scouting ahead of the main force, rolling through a small German town. Everything seems quiet. Too quiet. Tommy slows down. Something feels wrong. O'Brien scans the buildings through his binoculars. Nothing. Maybe the town is abandoned. Maybe the Germans already retreated. They move forward carefully. Then O'Brien sees it. A reflection. Sunlight glinting off something metal. In a church tower. He yells. Tommy reacts instantly. He spins the wheel and hits the gas. The Hellcat shoots forward just as a German anti-tank gun fires from the church. The shell screams past, missing by feet. Now they know there's an ambush. But where are the tanks? O'Brien studies the town. Then he sees them. Tank tracks in the mud, leading to a large barn. The Germans have hidden tanks inside buildings. It's a trap for the main American column coming behind them. If the Hellcats hadn't spotted it, dozens of Shermans would have driven right into the kill zone. O'Brien radios back. Enemy armor hidden in town, preparing to engage. Do not advance main force. He's going in alone. Tommy drives the Hellcat in a wide circle around the town. They're looking for another way in. They find a small road that leads behind the barn. Perfect. They approach from the rear, quiet as possible. The Hellcat's engine is actually running quiet for once. They can hear German voices inside the barn. The crews are waiting, talking, smoking, confident. O'Brien signals his gunner, load high explosive. They're going to blow the barn door and see what happens. The gunner fires. The shell explodes against the barn door. Wood splinters everywhere. Inside, chaos. German crews scramble to their tanks, but it takes time to start a cold tank, time they don't have. The Hellcat crew can see inside now. 2 Panthers, both stationary, crews climbing in. O'Brien orders armour piercing. The gunner switches ammunition. Fires. The first Panther takes the hit in the side. Explosion. Before the second Panther can react, the Hellcat fires again. Another hit. Both German tanks are burning, the crews evacuate, coughing from smoke. They surrender immediately. But the fight isn't over. The anti-tank gun in the church is still active. It fires at the Hellcat. Miss. Tommy's already moving. He races through the town streets at 45 miles per hour. The church gunner tries to track them but can't keep up. The Hellcat is too fast. O'Brien has an idea. He radios for artillery support, gives them the coordinates of the church. 30 seconds later, American howitzers open up. Shells rain down on the church tower. The anti-tank gun is silenced. The ambush is broken. The main American column advances through the town safely. The infantry commander finds O'Brien and shakes his hand. "You saved a lot of lives today, Sergeant." O'Brien just shrugs. "Just doing our job, sir," but he's proud. His crew is proud, they're good at this, the best. Other Hellcat crews hear about the Speed Devils' latest victory. The reputation grows. Some German units specifically ask for intelligence on Hellcat positions. They want to avoid them if possible. The hunters have become the hunted. Not all missions go smoothly. Another Hellcat unit isn't so lucky. They're ambushing a German convoy when they run into a Jagged Panther. It's a tank destroyer just like them, but bigger, heavier, with better armour and a better gun. The Jagged Panther sees the Hellcats first. It fires. One M18 explodes immediately. The crew doesn't have time to escape. The second Hellcat tries to run, but the Jagged Panther's shell catches it in the side. 2 Hellcats gone in seconds. The third Hellcat manages to escape, racing away at top speed. The crew is traumatized. They just saw their friends die. They know the Hellcat isn't invincible. They know they're vulnerable. This is the reality of Hellcat combat. When everything goes right, they're unstoppable. But when things go wrong, that thin armour means death. The crews accept this. They know the deal. Speed and tactics or death. There's no middle ground. Every mission could be their last. They write letters home before each patrol, just in case. They make jokes to hide their fear. They take care of each other. The bonds between Hellcat crews are unbreakable. They trust each other with their lives every single day. As the Americans push deeper into Germany, the Hellcat units see things that shock them. Concentration camps, the survivors, the horror of what the Nazis did. The Hellcat crews stop joking. They stop feeling any sympathy for the enemy. They understand now what they're fighting for. They understand why winning matters. The mood changes, the determination hardens. Every German tank they destroy brings the end of this evil regime closer. They fight with renewed purpose. The German tank commanders are facing reality now. They're running out of fuel, running out of ammunition, running out of experienced crews. Many German tanks sit abandoned beside roads, empty of fuel. The crews destroy them rather than let them fall into American hands. Other tanks are hidden in forests waiting for one last battle. The German commanders know it's over, but they have orders to fight, so they fight, even when it's hopeless, even when they know they'll die. The fanaticism scares the American crews. These Germans won't surrender. They'll fight until they're dead. One Hellcat unit encounters the last Tiger II battalion in their sector. These Germans have decided to make a final stand in a small village. They're dug in. They're determined. They have nothing to lose. The Americans could bypass them, but the generals want the village secured, so the Hellcats go in. This time there's no clever flanking maneuver, no ambush, just a straight fight. The Hellcats use their speed to rush from cover to cover. They lose 2 vehicles, but they knock out 4 Tiger IIs. The cost is high, but they win. The surviving Hellcat crews are exhausted. They're so close to the end of the war now. They just want to survive these last few battles. They just want to go home. The thing about the M18 Hellcat that the history books often miss is this. It wasn't just a machine. It was a philosophy. A completely different way of thinking about armoured warfare. For decades, tank designers believed in one thing. Bigger is better. Thicker armour, bigger guns, more weight, more protection. Every major army in the world followed this thinking. The Germans took it to the extreme. Their Tigers and Panthers were engineering masterpieces. Beautiful machines. Deadly machines. But they had problems nobody talks about enough. A Tiger tank needed constant maintenance. The engine broke down frequently. The transmission was fragile. If you pushed it too hard, which you had to in combat, things broke. German tank crews spent more time fixing their tanks than fighting in them. And fuel. Oh man, the fuel consumption was insane. A Tiger could go through its entire fuel tank in about 60 miles on roads. Off-road? Maybe 30 miles. The German army was always running out of fuel. Tanks sat abandoned everywhere, not because they were destroyed, but because they ran out of gas. This was Germany's secret weakness. The Americans understood something the Germans didn't. In modern war, mobility matters more than armor. Being able to move forces quickly matters more than having the thickest steel. The Hellcat proved this. It could travel 100 miles on a tank of fuel, it was reliable, the mechanics could fix it quickly, parts were available. If a Hellcat broke down, which was rare, another vehicle could tow it. You couldn't tow a 70-ton Tiger with anything. It stayed where it broke until specialized recovery vehicles arrived. If those weren't available, you just blew it up so the enemy couldn't use it. The tactical flexibility of the Hellcat was incredible. Generals loved it. They could move Hellcat units anywhere quickly. A German panzer division took hours to reposition. A Hellcat battalion could be on the other side of the battlefield in 30 minutes. This speed meant American commanders could respond to threats fast. Germans break through on the left, send the Hellcats, enemy tanks spotted near the river. Hellcats are already there. This kind of rapid response was impossible with heavy tanks. The crews developed tactics that were totally new. One popular method was called bounding overwatch. 3 Hellcats would work together. One would race to a new position while the other 2 covered it. Once in position, that Hellcat would cover while another moved. This leapfrogging technique meant they were always moving forward but never exposed. German tanks couldn't do this. They were too slow. They had to move one at a time. The Hellcats could flow across the battlefield like water. Another favourite tactic was the swarm. When Hellcats found a powerful German tank, they wouldn't engage it one-on-one. That was suicide. Instead, 5 or 6 Hellcats would attack from all directions at once. The German tank could only shoot in one direction. While its turret was turning, the other Hellcats were shooting. The German crew would panic. They wouldn't know which threat to address first. Usually they'd try to retreat, but a Tiger reversing is even slower than a Tiger advancing. The Hellcats would chase it down like wolves hunting a bear. Eventually they'd get a shot at the weak points. Game over. The psychological impact on German tank crews was significant. Before Hellcats arrived, German tankers felt confident. They knew their armour was superior. They knew their guns were powerful. They could be aggressive. After encountering Hellcats, they became paranoid. They constantly watched their flanks. They worried about being surrounded. They heard every engine noise and wondered if Hellcats were coming. Some German commanders reported that their crews were exhausted from stress. The constant worry that those fast American tank destroyers might appear at any moment wore them down. The Hellcat crews themselves were different from regular tank crews. They were younger on average, more willing to take risks. They volunteered for Hellcat service knowing it was dangerous. The open-top design meant they were vulnerable to artillery, snipers, even hand grenades. But they accepted this because they believed in speed. They became experts at reading terrain. Where can we go that heavy tanks can't follow? What routes give us the advantage? How can we use buildings, trees, hills to our benefit? They studied maps obsessively. They memorized every road and path in their area. Communication was critical. Hellcat commanders used radios constantly. They talked to each other during battles. They coordinated movements. They shared intelligence about enemy positions. This was unusual at the time. Many tank units maintained radio silence during combat. They used hand signals or flags. But Hellcats needed constant communication. Their tactics only worked if everyone knew what everyone else was doing, so they talked. German units listening to American radio frequencies were often confused. The Hellcat crews used slang, code words, and talked fast. The Germans couldn't keep up. The maintenance crews deserve credit too. These guys kept the Hellcats running. They worked 16-hour days, changed engines in the field, replaced damaged tracks, fixed battle damage overnight so the vehicles were ready for combat the next morning. The Hellcat's simple design made repairs easier. Unlike the complex German tanks, you didn't need specialized tools. A good mechanic with basic equipment could keep a Hellcat fighting. This mattered more than people realize. A tank that's broken is useless. The Germans had thousands of tanks that couldn't fight because they couldn't be repaired. The Americans rarely had this problem. Training for Hellcat crews was intense. They practiced high-speed driving for hours. They learned to shoot while moving, which is incredibly difficult. They studied German tank recognition. They needed to identify enemy vehicles instantly. Is that a Tiger or a Tiger II? A Panther or a Panzer IV? The difference mattered. Different tanks had different weak points, different armour thickness. You needed to know immediately where to aim. The training also emphasised survival. If your Hellcat is hit, you have seconds to bail out. The crews practiced abandoning vehicle drills over and over. Some crews could evacuate their Hellcat in under 5 seconds. The camaraderie among Hellcat crews was special. They knew they depended on each other completely. The driver's skill kept them alive. The gunner's accuracy got kills. The commander's decisions meant success or death. They spent every moment together, ate together, slept next to their vehicles, shared everything. Many formed friendships that lasted their entire lives. After the war, Hellcat veteran associations held reunions. Old men in their 70s and 80s would gather and tell stories. They'd laugh about the crazy things they did, the risks they took, the battles they won, and they'd remember the friends who didn't make it home, who died in those thin-skinned vehicles doing impossible things. The year is ending, 1945, April. Germany is collapsing. The Russians are in Berlin. The Americans are racing across southern Germany. The war will be over soon. Everyone knows it. But they're still fighting, still dying. The German military is fragmenting into small groups. Some surrender immediately. Others fight fanatically. You never know which kind you'll encounter. The Hellcat crews are exhausted. They've been fighting for months without real rest. The adrenaline that kept them going is fading. Now they just want to survive. Make it through these last few days. Don't die when the war is almost over. Sergeant O'Brien and the Speed Devils are approaching a small German town. Intelligence says it might be defended, might be empty, nobody knows for sure. The fog is heavy this morning. Visibility is terrible. They advance slowly, carefully. Every shadow could be a threat. Tommy is driving even more cautiously than usual. He's thinking about home, about Iowa, about his family's farm. Just a few more days and he'll never have to do this again. The gunner is thinking about his girlfriend. They're engaged. He's got a ring in his pocket, just need to survive a little longer. Then through the fog, shapes, tanks. German tanks sitting in the town square. The crew tenses. O'Brien studies them through binoculars. Something's wrong. The tanks aren't moving, no guards around them. Are they abandoned? He makes a decision. Tommy, take us in slow. The Hellcat creeps forward. They're ready to run if anything happens. They get closer, closer. Now they can see clearly. The tanks are empty. Hatches open, no ammunition, no fuel. The German crew's just left them here. Another crew might have relaxed. O'Brien doesn't. This feels like a trap. He's right. Machine gun fire suddenly erupts from buildings. Not aimed at the Hellcat, aimed at the air. Warning shots. Then a white flag appears in a window. A German officer walks out, hands up. He's young, maybe 25. He speaks some English. His tank unit surrendered to the Americans in the town. He wants to make a deal. His crew will tell the Americans where all the German defensive positions are in the area. In exchange, they want to be treated well as prisoners. They want food. They're starving. They just want this to be over. O'Brien agrees. This is how the war is ending. Not with massive battles, but with small surrenders. Tired men giving up. The German officer is true to his word. He shows them detailed maps, where mines are planted, where artillery is hidden, where the last few tanks are operating. The information is gold. The Americans can advance safely now, save lives. The German officer asks O'Brien a question. Why did you Americans win? You didn't have the best tanks. O'Brien thinks about it. We didn't need the best tanks. We needed enough tanks, and we had better tactics. We adapted. You Germans stuck to your doctrine even when it wasn't working. The German officer nods. He understands. In his heart, he knew they would lose. Germany was fighting the whole world. America, Britain, Russia, all at once. Impossible odds. But they were soldiers. They followed orders. Now those orders have stopped coming. Now they just want to live. O'Brien respects that. They're men, just like him, caught in a terrible war. He gives the German prisoners rations, American food. The Germans eat like they haven't had a meal in weeks. They probably haven't. The German supply system collapsed months ago. Other Hellcat units are having similar experiences. The Germans are finished, but there are still holdouts, die-hard Nazis who refuse to accept reality. These are the dangerous ones. A Hellcat patrol encounters a Hitler Youth unit. Boys, teenagers, 15, 16 years old, armed with Panzerfausts, anti-tank rockets. They attack from buildings. One Hellcat is hit. The rocket penetrates the thin armour. The crew is killed instantly. The other Hellcats respond with heavy fire. It's brutal. These are kids, but they're enemy combatants. The surviving Hitler Youth members are captured. The Hellcat crews look at them and feel sick. What kind of leadership sends children to fight? This is what Nazism created. Fanaticism so strong that kids died for it. The final major action for Hellcat units comes in early May. A German SS Panzer unit refuses to surrender. They have a dozen tanks left, fuel for maybe one more battle. They're going to attack an American position, make one last stand, die fighting. The Americans get warning. Hellcat units converge on the area. This time there's no clever tactics, no hit and run. The Americans just overwhelm them with numbers. 20 Hellcats against 12 German tanks. The battle is short. The Germans fight well. They destroy 3 Hellcats, but they're destroyed completely. Every German tank knocked out. Some of the crews die in their vehicles. Others survive and are captured. One German commander is asked why he didn't surrender. His answer is chilling. Better to die than live in defeat. Then it's over. May 8, 1945. VE Day. Victory in Europe. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The Hellcat crews can't believe it. They're alive. They made it. They survived. Some cry. Some laugh. Some just sit quietly, processing everything they've been through. The war in Europe is finished. The Speed Devils park their Hellcat for the last time in combat. O'Brien looks at the vehicle that kept them alive. It's covered in dents and scratches, patched holes from near misses, but it still runs, still ready to fight if needed. Tommy pats the armour like you'd pat a horse. Thanks, old girl. You got us through. The statistics come out later. M18 Hellcats participated in hundreds of battles. They destroyed over 500 German tanks. Their kill-to-loss ratio was the best of any American armoured vehicle in the war. For every Hellcat lost, they killed 3 or 4 German tanks. That's incredible, considering they fought against heavier, more powerful vehicles, but the numbers don't tell the whole story. The Hellcats' real contribution was psychological. They changed how Americans fought. They proved that speed and tactics could beat armour and firepower. They gave American forces the confidence to take on German heavy tanks. German tank commanders after the war admitted the Hellcat was their most feared opponent. Not the Sherman, not the British tanks, the Hellcat. Because you never knew where they'd come from. You never knew when they'd attack. You could never catch them. One German veteran said in an interview that hearing that high-pitched engine sound made his stomach drop every time. He knew Hellcats were coming. He knew they'd attack from the flanks. He knew his heavy Tiger would be slow to respond. The psychological advantage was enormous. The crews began going home. Some Hellcat units stayed in Germany as part of the occupation forces, but most were disbanded. The vehicles were driven to collection points. Many were scrapped. America didn't need thousands of tank destroyers anymore. A few were kept for training, a few went to museums, the rest were cut up and melted down. The Speed Devils said goodbye to each other at a train station in Germany. They promised to stay in touch. Tommy went back to Iowa. The gunner went home to get married. O'Brien returned to Chicago and never talked about the war much, just occasionally, when the memories were too strong. The Pacific Theatre beckoned. While the war in Europe ended, Japan fought on. The US military considered sending Hellcat units to help with the invasion of Japan. Plans were drawn up. Training began for jungle warfare with the M18s, but there was a problem. The terrain in the Pacific Islands wasn't suitable for fast tank destroyers. Thick jungle, mountains, mud. The Hellcat's speed advantage wouldn't matter there. You couldn't race through a jungle at 55 miles per hour. The plans were quietly dropped. Besides, the atomic bombs ended the war before the invasion was necessary. The Hellcat's legacy didn't end in 1945. Other countries noticed what the Americans achieved. The design philosophy spread. After the war, nations around the world began developing fast, light-armoured vehicles. The Hellcat proved that mobility could substitute for armour. This idea influenced tank destroyer doctrine for decades. The French AMX-13, the British FV-4101 Charioteer. Even modern infantry fighting vehicles owe something to the M18's philosophy. Move fast, hit hard, don't get hit. In the years after the war, military analysts studied the Hellcat extensively. What made it successful? Several factors emerged. First, the crews were volunteers who believed in the vehicle. They weren't drafted soldiers assigned to equipment they didn't understand. They chose the Hellcat. They trained extensively. They developed innovative tactics. Second, American industrial capacity meant there were always spare parts, always replacements for destroyed vehicles. The Germans couldn't match this. Third, the Hellcat filled a specific role perfectly. It wasn't trying to be a main battle tank, it was a tank destroyer. Purpose-built, specialised. This focus made it excellent at its job. Historians debate the Hellcat's place in World War II. Some argue it was the best tank destroyer of the war. Others point out its vulnerabilities. The thin armour meant it couldn't survive mistakes. The open top made it vulnerable to artillery and air attack. In reality, the M18 was perfect for certain situations and terrible for others. In open terrain with room to manoeuvre, it was devastating. In urban combat, where you couldn't use speed, it was vulnerable. Smart commanders used Hellcats where they excelled and kept them away from situations that negated their advantages. The veterans carried memories forever. Some struggled with what we now call PTSD. The stress of combat in a thin-skinned vehicle took a psychological toll. You never felt safe. Even on quiet days, you knew one well-aimed shot could kill you all. Some Hellcat veterans had nightmares for years. Others adjusted better. They focused on the positive. They survived. They did their duty. They helped win the war. They saved their buddies' lives through skill and courage. Reunions became important. Starting in the 1970s, Hellcat veteran groups organised regular meetings. They'd gather at hotels and share stories. Younger historians would attend to interview them. The veterans were eager to tell their stories. They felt the Hellcat didn't get enough recognition. Everyone talked about Sherman tanks. Everyone knew about Tigers. But the Hellcat? Most people had never heard of it. The veterans wanted to change that. They wanted people to know what they'd accomplished. One reunion in 1989 brought together over 200 Hellcat veterans. They set up displays with photos, maps and memorabilia. One veteran brought his uniform from 1945. It still fit. Another had kept his crew's lucky charm, a toy Hellcat that sat on their dashboard through 40 battles. The stories flowed. They talked about the friends they lost, the close calls, the victories. An 18-year-old history student attended and was amazed. These polite old men were heroes. They'd done things he could barely imagine. They'd faced death daily and kept fighting. The Speed Devils reunited in 1995 for the 50th anniversary of VE Day. O'Brien was 73 years old. Tommy was 71. The gunner was 70. They looked at photos of themselves as young men and couldn't believe it. Were we ever that young? They visited a military museum that had a restored M18. They climbed onto it. Tommy sat in the driver's seat. His hands remembered where everything was. O'Brien looked through the commander's sight. The gunner touched his gun. For a moment, they were 20 years old again, racing across France, fighting for their lives. The moment passed. They climbed down slowly, their knees hurt, their backs ached. They were old men now, but they'd always have those memories. Modern military units study Hellcat tactics, maneuver warfare, speed over armour. These concepts are central to modern doctrine. The M1 Abrams tank is fast for a 70-ton vehicle, specifically because planners learned from World War II. The Bradley fighting vehicle emphasises mobility and firepower over protection. The Striker armoured vehicle is light and fast. All these designs reflect lessons the Hellcat taught. In military colleges, cadets study the Battle of Araucourt, where Hellcats destroyed 2 panzer brigades. They analyse the tactics, the coordination, the use of terrain. The reports written by Hellcat commanders are required reading. Some M18s still exist. About a dozen are in museums around the world. They're popular exhibits. People are surprised by how small they are, how thin the armour is, how open the top is. Then they read about what these vehicles accomplished and they understand. It wasn't about the machine, it was about the men who crewed them, their courage, their skill, their willingness to face death in a vehicle that couldn't protect them. That takes a special kind of bravery. The last living Hellcat commander died in 2019. He was 96 years old. His obituary mentioned his Silver Star, his Purple Heart, his service in France, Belgium and Germany. It mentioned that he commanded an M18 Hellcat. His grandchildren didn't really know what that meant until they researched it. They found videos, interviews, photos. They learned their grandfather was part of something important, something that changed how wars were fought. They found a letter he wrote to his parents in 1945. In it, he described his Hellcat as the fastest thing on the battlefield and the only reason I'm still alive. That quote captures the essence of the M18. It was fast. It was deadly. It saved lives by being too quick for the enemy to hit. The men who crewed them knew they were in constant danger, but they also knew they had an advantage: speed, movement, surprise. They used those advantages brilliantly. They turned disadvantages, thin armour, open top, into motivation to be smarter and faster than the enemy. They proved that in war, brains can beat brawn, tactics can beat technology, courage can overcome fear. The story of the M18 Hellcat is ultimately a story about American ingenuity and adaptability. When faced with superior German tanks, the US didn't try to build bigger tanks. They built smarter weapons. They recognized that in modern mechanized warfare, mobility was becoming more important than protection. This was a revolutionary idea in 1943. Tanks had been getting heavier and more armoured since World War I. Everyone assumed that trend would continue forever. The Hellcat bucked that trend. The vehicle represented a different philosophy of combat. The Germans believed in quality. Build the best tank possible. Make it nearly indestructible. The Americans believed in quantity and flexibility. Build good enough tanks. Build lots of them. Use them cleverly. The Hellcat was the ultimate expression of this philosophy. It wasn't trying to be the best tank, it was trying to be the best tool for a specific job. And at that job, hunting and destroying enemy armour, it was exceptional. Consider the broader context. America was fighting a war on two fronts, Europe and the Pacific. They were supplying not just their own forces but also British, French, Soviet and Chinese armies. The logistics were staggering. In this environment, the Hellcat was perfect. It was cheap to produce. It used existing components from other vehicles. It was reliable. It required minimal maintenance. A factory could build M18s much faster than German factories could build Tigers. While Germany struggled to produce 100 Tigers per month, America was making 250 Hellcats per month at peak production. The crew training was also more efficient. It took months to train a Tiger crew to handle that complex vehicle. Hellcat crews could be trained in weeks, not because the Hellcat was simple, it wasn't, but because the focus was different. You didn't need to know complicated engine maintenance, that was for the mechanics. You needed to know how to drive fast, shoot accurately, and work as a team. Those skills could be taught quickly to motivated volunteers, and there were always volunteers. Young men who wanted to make a difference, who wanted to be part of something special. The social dynamics within Hellcat units were interesting. Because they faced constant danger together, the crews developed extremely tight bonds. Rank mattered less than competence. Sergeant might take advice from a private if that private had good ideas. This was unusual in the rigid military hierarchy of the 1940s, but Hellcat units developed a more egalitarian culture. They had to. When you're racing toward enemy tanks at 50 miles per hour, you don't have time for formal military protocol. You need instant communication and total trust. Many veterans said that their time in Hellcat units was the most intense experience of their lives. Nothing before or after compared. The combination of constant danger, close friendships, and the satisfaction of doing something exceptionally well created a unique experience. They were part of an elite group. They knew it. Everyone else knew it. When Hellcat units arrived at a position, other troops felt relieved. Help was here. The specialists were here. The tank killers were here. The psychological toll was real, though. The constant stress wore men down. Some Hellcat commanders developed superstitions, lucky scarves, special coins, rituals before battle. These helped them cope with the fear, because make no mistake, they were afraid. Anyone who claims they weren't afraid in combat is lying. The brave ones are the ones who are terrified and did their job anyway. The Hellcat crews were terrified every day. That thin armour was a constant reminder. You weren't safe. You would never be safe. Your only defence was speed and luck. After the war, the army tried to learn from the Hellcat's success. They developed new tank destroyers, but something was lost. The post-war designs were more conventional, heavier armour, slower speed. The unique philosophy that made the M18 special was diluted. Eventually, the army decided it didn't need specialised tank destroyers at all. Main battle tanks could do everything. The tank destroyer units were disbanded. The Hellcat faded from memory except among veterans and military historians. But the legacy remained in doctrine. The idea that speed and mobility could substitute for armour influenced military thinking for decades. Modern mechanised infantry uses similar tactics. Attack from unexpected angles, use superior mobility to outmaneuver opponents, avoid fair fights. These are all principles the Hellcat proved in combat. Every time a Bradley fighting vehicle flanks an enemy position, it's using Hellcat tactics. Every time a striker unit conducts reconnaissance by force, it's following the Hellcat model. In recent years, there's been renewed interest in the M18. Video games feature it. Historical documentaries highlight it. Military museums restore them. A new generation is discovering this remarkable vehicle. Young people watch footage of Hellcats racing across battlefields and are amazed. That thing could go 55 miles per hour in 1944 with a 76mm gun? That's insane. Yes, it was insane. That was the point. The Hellcat was deliberately extreme. Maximum speed, minimum armour, everything optimised for one purpose, killing enemy tanks. The question often asked is, what if Germany had developed something similar? What if they'd built light, fast tank destroyers instead of massive Tigers? The answer is complex. Germany's industrial capacity was limited. They couldn't mass-produce vehicles like America could. They needed every tank to count, so they built quality over quantity. It's also a matter of doctrine. German military culture valued engineering perfection. A German general would be embarrassed to field a vehicle with thin armour. It wasn't their style. They wanted invincible tanks. They wanted to win through superior technology. The American approach, win through superior tactics and numbers, was foreign to them. This cultural difference extended to how crews were treated. German tank crews were professionals, career soldiers, often from military families. American Hellcat crews were civilians in uniform, farm boys, factory workers, college kids. They brought civilian innovation to military problems. They weren't bound by decades of tank warfare doctrine. They could experiment, try new things. If something worked, they kept doing it. If it didn't, they tried something else. This flexibility was a secret weapon. The final legacy of the M18 Hellcat is inspiration. It proves that creative thinking can overcome material disadvantages. The Americans didn't have better tanks than the Germans, but they won tank battles anyway. They did it through superior tactics, better logistics, and innovative design like the Hellcat. For any military facing a stronger opponent, this is an important lesson. You don't have to beat the enemy at their own game. You can change the game. You can fight smart instead of fighting hard. You can use speed instead of strength. Today, when military planners design new weapons, they ask, what would give us an advantage? Not what would be the most impressive, not what would be the most powerful, but what would actually work on the battlefield against our likely opponents. This mindset comes directly from vehicles like the M18. It's the opposite of the arms race mentality where everyone tries to build bigger and bigger weapons. Instead, build weapons that fit your needs. Build weapons that exploit enemy weaknesses. Build weapons that your troops can actually use effectively. The men who crewed the M18 Hellcat didn't know they were making history. They were just trying to survive, trying to do their jobs, trying to get home. But in doing so, they proved something important. They proved that courage and intelligence matter more than steel and armour. They proved that speed kills. They proved that the underdog can win if they're smart and brave and well-trained. They faced the best tanks Germany could build and they won. Not always, not easily, but they won. They stacked up victories that nobody thought possible. They killed Tigers and Panthers and King Tigers. They did it in vehicles with armour so thin you could almost see through it. That takes a special kind of courage that deserves to be remembered. So when you hear about the M18 Hellcat, remember this. It wasn't just a tank destroyer, it was a statement. It said we don't have to play by your rules. It said fast beats tough. It said smart beats strong. It said American ingenuity can defeat German engineering. And it was right. The German tank commanders learned this the hard way. They laughed at the Hellcat at first. A light vehicle against our Tigers. Ridiculous. Then they heard that engine scream. Then they felt the shells hit their flanks. Then they weren't laughing anymore. They were burning. The M18 Hellcat. the fastest tank destroyer of World War II, a legend born from necessity, a weapon that changed how wars are fought, and most importantly, a vehicle that brought thousands of brave young Americans home alive. That's its real legacy, not the kill count, not the speed records, but the lives saved through brilliant design and fearless crews. They earned their place in history. They earned their nickname, the Hellcats. Fast, deadly, unforgettable.